Sahana vavatu, sahano bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahe, tejasvina vadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Verse 1 wants to show is there are three seers. Okay, there's a connection or a relationship between a drik and a drishya, between consciousness and objects arising in consciousness. Okay, and it does this through a certain logic, and it starts out with your everyday experience, and it says, look at anything in this world, it changes, right? But the seer of that which changes doesn't change. So the I, being the drik, doesn't change. But then when it comes to the eyes, they constantly change their conditions, right? From blindness to brightness to farsightedness to close-sightedness, right? So your eyes, your conditions of the eyes, right? It changes throughout life. It changes throughout the day even. And therefore, for that to be revealed as a changing, there has to be something behind it that is other than the I, right? It has to be different from the I. And therefore, that is what we call the mind. So therefore, the mind becomes the drik and the I becomes the drishya. But then again, the mind is an instrument of change from morning to evening, 60,000 times a day. Nobody experiences themselves in this one chaotic state of modifications from morning to evening, right? You experience yourself how? One equanimous, homogeneous stream of beingness. One continuous stream of I am. Is this your experience? One continuous stream of, consciousness. Just a conscious being in whose presence the state of the mind is going through changes, going through ups and downs, going through emotions, going through whatever it is, okay? So this is the logic. So now if you look at what they say, it's called the sakshi. So the final drik, right? Being the nature of consciousness is what they say is sakshi. It's the witness, okay? So it doesn't matter what these names are. Don't get caught up in the names. They just call it the sakshi, the witness. So in the presence of it, what is witnessed? Witnessed is the mind. Witnessed is the conditions of the eyes. And witnessed is the forms, okay? So, and how do you show this? How do you show that consciousness, right? This drik, this final seer, which has no one's looking at your awareness, looking at your mind. It's the final seer. So there's no higher reality if you think about it. There's nothing higher than the very ordinary consciousness that you enjoy every single day. That you enjoy, not every, right now, right? There is a person in your mind, and what's this person's name? Okay, there's a teacher here, and in whose mind is this person now in a mind from that standpoint? But what is illumining this mind that is equally illumining that mind, right? One drik, one consciousness. What's changing? The minds. Because your mind is conditioned by a different life. My mind is conditioned by a different life. You're looking this way, I'm looking this way. So obviously, you're going to have changes of the mind, okay? So what it wants to communicate is this one drik, right? Before a thought of the mind occurs, who's there? Right? Before a thought occurs in your mind, who's there to witness the oncoming of a new thought? I am, right? I am, right? While the thought, whatever the thought is, this is not a question of what thoughts, whatever thought is, while the thought is there, who's there to witness that thought? I am. And after that thought, the departure of that thought, who's there to witness the departure of that thought? I am. So therefore, whatever this I is, you don't have to define it. Whatever remains, despite the presence, right? Despite the oncoming, the presence and the departure of the thought, whatever remains, that is consciousness. That is the final reality. You see, it's very simple. It's not kind of like this mystical thing, oh, consciousness, let's visualize it. Now look at this. Can you ever turn Drig, the final Drig, into a Drishya? Can you ever turn your consciousness into an object?
No.
No, why not? Because to do so, that conclusion was another Drishya. You understand? So it doesn't matter if you said yes or no. The point is that occurred where? In the mind, which was just another one of the 60,000 changes, and that was in the presence of Sakshi, the final Drig. That conclusion was known to be so. It was known to be so from your standpoint, it's known to be so from everybody's standpoint. When? In the past, in the present, and in the future. Okay? So this is not a teaching, a belief. It's not something you believe. Oh, okay. It's always true for everyone. Even for okay, I'll get to insects later, because you say, is my consciousness now different from the consciousness of an insect? Huh? So the answer is no, it's exactly the same consciousness, but we will show this logic. The only thing that doesn't have a Drig is this final Sakshi, okay? And therefore, everything after Drig has this, right? It has this relationship of Drig and Drsya, right? But when it comes to the final Drig, there is no relationship between Drig and Drishya. It's just the final Drig. So what's the nature of the mistake that we all do at the beginning, right? When we're born. The nature of this mistake is to impute the body-mind conditions, the 60,000s, onto this Drig. So therefore we say, right, I am, right, and then you put an adjective onto it. You say, I am, like, whatever, I am, a low person, I am a rich person, right? I am fat, I am thin, right? I am tall, I am short. So what's happening here? The Drishya is being imputed onto the Drig. That's why, huh?
It's going reverse.
Yeah, it's,
Drishya going on to Drig.
exactly. So Drig takes on the attributes of Drishya. And that's why it's called Drig Drishya Viveka. So this means it requires a discriminative inquiry to discern between this innocent error that everyone makes since birth. And that is the conditions of the 60,000s, including the body, they get imputed onto consciousness. And it says that consciousness is the final Drig. And therefore, what do I say? I am mortal. Because what's mortal? The body-mind is mortal. Therefore, all of the problems of the body-mind become whose problem? The Drig's problem, the final Drig's problem. This is why we say, when we get old, we say, oh, I no longer see. I used to see so well. And so we take it personally. Why? Because the sense organs, Drishya, is imputed onto consciousness, the Drig. Therefore, it becomes my identity. Okay? Up to this point, is it relatively clear what we're talking about? Okay, next verse wants to show this connection, wants to give you the logic of what I already explained. So, verse 2, Nila pita stula sukshma hrasva dirgha adi bhedataha nana vidhani rupani pashyet lochanam ekadha. Well, Nila pita, right? So, right, whatever color it is, blue, yellow, green, big, sukshma, right, tiny, stula, huge, dirgha, hraswa, long. So what it's saying is all forms enjoy these characteristics, right? Whatever color they are. The blue sky, the green grass, the big mountain, the small insect, the long, what's long in this world? Long road, right? Short, whatever, right? So all of these characteristics are witnessed, are seen by the eye, but the eye itself doesn't become long, nor short, nor blue, nor yellow. So if I look at the blue sky, do my eyes turn blue? Yeah. If you have black eyes, suppose, because some people have blue eyes, so you're kind of like, oh, that's shaky. So suppose you have black eyes and you look at the blue sky. Do your eyes magically turn blue? No, they don't. When you look at something huge, like in the distance, like a mountain, does your eye suddenly, kind of take on big vision, or does the eye change in any way whatsoever? No. So the Drig always remains unaffected by the conditions of the Drishya. Now, what it says is it's not only true for the eye, as we already said, but it's also true for the ears. Okay. So when, for example, when you hear silence, does your mind become does your mind become silent, for example? In fact, when we hear silence, that's when the mind, right, becomes quite loud. So you can see the relationship. So the attribute of the ear, right, which is whatever sound, it doesn't sort of pass on to the drik. But what he wants to say really is, suppose the person's deaf, they don't hear. Is the mind deaf? Right? Right? Suppose when we get sick, right, then we lose our taste and smell. Right? Do your thoughts suddenly become sort of tasteless or smellless or whatever? No, so in other words, it's kind of harder to do with taste and smell, isn't it? It's much easier with eyes and hearing. I get it. I already feel that. So the point is, the drishya never passes on to the drik. This is what it wants to communicate. Nana vidhani rupani. So various forms, pashyet, are seen by what? Lochanam ekadha, by one eye. So look at this. Many forms, but one eye. 1,000 forms, one eye. So where's the duality? In the drishya. Where's the non-duality? In the drik. So now you can see what they want to do. They want to apply this logic onto the mind and finally onto consciousness. So it carries it down the path. So let's go into the next verse. Now, andhya, mandhya, patuttveshu netra dharmeshu cha ekadha sankalpayet manaha. Shrotra twak adau yojya tam idam. Yeah, you're right. So verse 2 was relationship between eye and form, right? I'm kind of like, mixing it in, right? Now verse 3 is relationship between mind and sense organs, right? The eye and so on. So, right. So when your eye is blind, right? When your eye sees really well, right? Does your mind suddenly kind of function very well just because your eye is seeing very well? Your eye is like bright and suddenly your mind is bright? No, you can have very bright eyes. You can have a treatment here, Ayurveda, and they can make your eyes sparkle. Does your mind sparkle? No. So in other words, even if you affect the drishya in a good way, it still doesn't affect the drik. Okay, so this is the logic. And again, it applies same to hearing, right? As I said, poor hearing, it doesn't make my mind poor, does it? It makes the hearing poor. Good hearing, you get hearing aid and suddenly you have good hearing, but your mind is still thinking the same as before the hearing aid. So the mind remains unaffected, okay? When it comes to the mind, so they want to bring the next verse, the relationship between the sakshi and the mind, okay? So let's see what it says now. Up to now, is this clear? So we just repeated what verse 1 said. Okay, so kamaha sankalpasandehau Shraddha ashraddhe drikti itare. Hrihi dhihi bhihi iti evam adin bhasayati ekadha chitihi. Okay, so it's talking about the various conditions of your mind. Okay, so what do we have? So your mind is an instrument. Okay, that's all it does. It's just meant to receive data of the world, process the data, and get your stuff done. Okay? Whatever that data is, that depends on how you think about the world, where you expose yourself, how you sort of choose to, what orientations you have from the past. But either way, the mind is just an instrument that is used to help you get fulfillment, right? To discover the nature of who you are, and of course, to pursue and make your life happy. So this mind is the final drik, where most of the world puts their drik. This is the essence of what he wants to show. Not most, but basically the entire world, right, more or less, is putting their drik into the mind. The mind becomes the drik. And what does the mind do? It goes through various, like kama. So what is kama? Kama is desire. Now, in pseudo-spirituality, what do we say? Get rid of your desires. And you're saying that don't desire, have redirect your desires towards others. Don't have any desires of your own. You see? So even if you know the Bhagavad Gita, this is how easy it is to misinterpret these things. Okay? Nowhere does it say, don't desire. What Krishna says to Arjuna is, perform desires that do not oppose dharma. Any desire that does not oppose dharma, the rules of the game, is absolutely fine. It ends up nourishing you, nurturing you. So, see, desire, is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Good. It has to be neutral.
Careful. Whenever I give you these black or white options, you have to think. Because I'm limiting you, so you have to think. Choose the option in between, and you'll be the safest. So is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Good.
Huh?
Good.
If you don't want to fail, you just have to say, depends. Okay? Why? Okay, so when is desire a hindrance onto your spiritual path? When can it be a hindrance onto your spiritual path?
When it leads you to unharming behavior.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a desire to sell some illegal substances and hurt people on which I don't know who they are, right? That can sort of haunt the person back. They can have guilt, and the police can eventually find them out. So desire is neither good or a bad thing. I don't need to tell you how many examples there are. The point is, it can be a detriment, or it can help you live a prosperous life. It all depends on the intention of the person. Okay? You can learn to think creatively, that's a desire. You can learn to be a poet, that's a desire. You can learn to be a mumukshu, not learn, but develop this yearning for freedom. That is a desire. You can develop yearning for a jitnyatsu. Not only now do I have a desire for freedom, but I have a desire to understand the nature of I. This is the difference between mumukshu, a desirer of freedom, and the one who knows what it takes to free myself. And that is knowledge. Because as we said, action can never give me that which is limitless. Why not? Because every action is time-bound. A time-bound action plus a time-bound action, which always gives you a time-bound result. So look at this, time-bound result plus time-bound result plus limited result plus limited result plus limited result. How many times do you have to add to get limitless? So this is what they call samsara, right? Just keep on looking for more and more and more, but they're all limited in nature. Therefore, we have to look at another approach, another method. And that's why we call Vedanta praptasya prapti. It's about discovering that which is already right here, right now. I just fail to acknowledge it, fail to see it. Why? Because of this beginningless era whereby we impute the seen onto the seer. And it never leaves until you take a conscious, deliberate decision to solve the problem once and for all. So again, it comes back to your own, to your own choice. And this choice is always offered to us. Okay? So, yeah. So look at this. Desire is just the capacity of the mind. That's it. It's neither good nor bad. It's there to help you or hinder you. It depends on what intention you give that desire. And speaking of intention, we have sankalpa. Sankalpa is that resolve. I like the word intention. Usually they will mix this up. Resolve. So what is my resolve? Is my resolve to take charge of my emotions, right? To bring my life into harmony with, people that I spend time with, to bring harmony with myself? Or is my, resolve to, cheat someone or, do something that's unfair to someone? So again, this is a modification of the mind. It doesn't, right? It doesn't pass on to the drik. That's what it wants to show you. Okay. And then we have sandeha. Sandeha is doubt. Right. So what about doubt? Can this be a good or a bad thing? It depends. Now, when is doubt a good thing? When can it be a useful, constructive thing? Doubt. Super. when you try to understand your behavior. Was this the right thing to do? You start to question your mind, start to question your intentions, and therefore it becomes something that uplifts you. When is it a not such a productive thing? When I, use my doubt to say, where is she? Why is she not home by, 6 o'clock? Could she be with someone else? And so we start to kind of question and, step over someone else's rights to be free. So it can, again, bring conflict into life, or it can, free you. Yeah. And then we have Shraddha. What is Shraddha? Often we say faith, right? Well, it's actually, that's what we hear. It's that conviction to stick by something long enough until you make progress in it. What's the opposite to this? Okay, this is, you imagine this. You go to a physics class and you say, hey, teacher, I want you to show me how does the universe work in one lesson. Come on, show me. Show me the vastness of the universe and the relationship, from the Big Bang to how the planets work and how, we as human beings evolved. Show me this in one lesson. Can he do it? He or she? You can't do it. So this means I have to have, as a person, faith to stick long enough into anything, so much so that I feel pieces of the puzzles, they're starting to fit in. And how long? As long as it takes, right? So look, this is a beautiful quality. You can have sankalpa, the right intention. I want to take charge of my emotions. I want to transform my life. We can have kama, desire to be free. We can have sandeha. We can be very inquirous about our, questionable kind of behaviors. We can be very kind of doubtful of that and use that to question ourselves. But then if we don't have the right faith, that conviction to keep on persisting until I see some tangible, concrete results in my day-to-day experience, then no matter how great these qualities are, they're just not going to benefit you very much, because the mind's orientations are going to come back into the present moment, right? The old ancient notions from the past, from the childhood, what happens? They come into our present. This is why when people get into a relationship, what happens? Very soon, those buried orientations, they start to show up through our, through our words, through our behaviors. And it's kind of very confused here, because I thought I was a good person. I thought I had patience. I thought I had, the right questioning, the right resolve. And now all of this stuff starts to come out. So that means having Shraddha, faith, to keep going no matter what. And I'm not talking about blind faith. I'm talking about faith or conviction to continue using the buddhi, using your critical analysis. Critical analysis every way along the way. It's not a passive journey, by the way. It's a very active, engaged journey where the mind is used. In Sanskrit, we call the human being manushya. What is manushya? A thinking being. That's what determines the human being from an animal. A human being, so if you really want to be a human, you have to be, not that you have to be, but ideally, one is a thinking being. Okay, I don't want to say have to, otherwise it sounds like an instruction. But that's what a manushya is. I think about my experience. I think, is this the right thing to do? Are there alternatives? Could I be, kind of cutting myself short? Am I making unnecessary, sacrifices, or what compromise? How much do I have to compromise here to get what I really want? Do I have to cut down on my entertainment a little bit to have more time for inquiry? This is a question that needs to be posed. Until the question gets posed, there's no change. Because it's just, as we were saying earlier, impulsive or mechanical. Only when one starts to question their modifications of the mind, that's what it's talking about here, only then we start to make them work for us rather than against us. Okay? So we have conviction. And the other opposite extreme end is ashraddha. This is no faith whatsoever. This is like, okay, I don't have faith in this teaching. I don't have faith in the teacher, nothing. For those of us who have seen Nima, I talk about a lot, right, about her because she's everything to me. Right? She's like, I love her so much. Do you think this is because I just attended one lesson and I thought, oh, great, Upanishads, Chandogya Upanishad, I love it, let's go. No, because I attend the webinars every single week for years. This is called Shraddha, faith in the teaching. The other extreme, the other opposite is, she's kind of not talking my language here. I need something more intellectual. Go find someone else. And they're too intellectual. And they go, this is too intellectual. Find someone else. There's just no ending to this. So Shraddha is staying long enough until you develop that emotional connection to something using critical analysis. Otherwise, it becomes sort of this blind, just blind following. You see, it takes effort to develop a relationship. It takes effort. And I love that it takes effort. That's why those who do take the time to have this Shraddha, huge benefits. In Tattva Bodha, which says, what is the benefit, to whom does a jnani's, a wise person's punya go? All of their good, their good qualities. It goes to his or her students. It goes to his, and now what kind of students? The ones who have a relationship. Until one develops a relationship, it's a very short-lived experience. It's something that I just tell. Once upon a time, I had a lovely teacher, and this is what I learned. It's not about a once upon a time. It's a lifelong thing. At least how I see it, it's a lifelong thing. It's a lifelong relationship between you, God, and the teacher. I keep saying this all the time. It's between me, God, and the teacher. And that takes Shraddha, faith. And that faith is going to take you through so many obstacles. And the relationship between the teacher and the student, it's not always smooth. This is another fact. It's not as romantic as we think. There are times when, I'm angry, I'm angry. But that faith keeps me going because I know that this person has nothing but good intentions for me. Therefore, I feel safe in that. So if I don't have that faith, that Shraddha, then no matter how good the teaching or the teacher is, it's not going to be a level, is not going to be there. A certain connection, a level that those who do have a connection, only they will know what I'm talking about. That special connection that you have. Just like between you and a partner. That connection wasn't there when you began kind of dating, right? Once upon a time. That connection develops through the years. And that connection especially develops when they piss you off, right? That's the irony. Only when you get pissed off and you survive that, only then it deepens. I said to Julie, I said, I don't want a teacher who makes me feel good. I need a teacher who shows my vulnerabilities, my weaknesses, my smallness, my inadequacy. Because I stand for change, not feeling good, Vedanta, let me establish myself in a final drik. Anyone can do that. Change happens when you have faith. Amongst that conviction, there is pain. And in that pain, the irony is there is growth right then and there. Why do I need a teacher to make me feel good? Go and watch TV, Netflix. That's going to do the job. Show me where is my weaknesses, where's my vulnerabilities, where do I feel like a small individual. That's the area where overcoming, I get to grow. And how is that developed? Through faith. So it's not a small thing, it's a huge thing. This conviction to stick and keep going until you develop that relationship. And then we have hrihi. Hrihi is shame. Again, shame. Is this good or bad? Good? It depends. It depends on, when is shame a positive thing? Shame. When can it be a positive? Shame could also be embarrassment. When is it a positive thing?
When it motivates you to change your behavior.
Super. Suppose you fall down the stairs at a train station or something, and there's people watching you. And the moment we fall down, how do we feel? Embarrassed, self-conscious. Why do I feel embarrassed, self-conscious when everyone makes, right, falls sooner or later? What does this have to do with other people looking at me? There's just no connection. And yet I feel embarrassed, shame. Therefore, it's an indicator something needs to change. I can look at this, I can reframe the situation. What does reframing mean? It means that you look at your existing state of mind and you look at it in a way that empowers you. For example, I saw a great example of social media addiction, and someone created this, wrote a book called Reframing, and they said, how does an alcoholic stop drinking alcohol? How do you use reframing to get rid of an addiction of alcohol? Oh, just look at it as drinking poison. Right? It doesn't have to make sense, but if it works for you, if it touches you, that's good enough. How do I break this addiction for social media? And he says, well, just look at it as a powerful mind-altering drug. A powerful mind-altering drug that has no best interest for me. Okay, that works. So it lowers my intensity for social media. How do I look at crises? Now, there is a crisis in life. Perfect opportunity to reassess my life. Reframing. That means just looking at it from a slightly different standpoint, whereby you're able to, empower yourself to make some changes. Okay. So now, when is a shame not such a useful thing?
Well, when it deflates you, when it doesn't motivate you to change, it kind of, it gets in the way of your everyday living.
Yeah. So again, then in that case, it's stifling. It stifles me. And again, through that, I can use feedback that something needs to change. And not just feedback, but prayers. For those who have listened to Nima, I think she mentioned prayers a lot. It works a lot. That means, you request, you have also? Yeah. A prayer. That means asking, Lord, I do not know how to solve this. This is beyond me. Please help me to think in a different way. Help me to expel this, obstacle. I just want to serve. And this is holding me back. So inspire me through something or someone by helping me see this in a different light so that I can move forward in my life. Because I just want to serve and be happy. Help me move over this situation. A little prayer. Communion with the Lord. Yeah, it's kind of manipulation. It's using kind of guilt to motivate me. Feel sinful. You're a bad person. You've got sins on your track record. You've got you should feel ashamed of yourself. Why? Why should I feel ashamed of myself? Now there is context for this. Sometimes if shame, for example, can be good because it helps you to keep with the societal norms, right? So if the shame wasn't there, then I would just act like an idiot and I wouldn't have any shame at all. So in this case, shame can help, right? So again, it's not about you should or you shouldn't. This language had its place. And notice, I'm not even judging the language. I'm not even putting the language. It has its place. This is called objectivity, right? Everything has its place in this world. It took me to a certain point so that I can start to see there is no shoulds or shouldn'ts. It's just, it's just there to indicate, emotions are just indicators where you're at in life. That's all they are. Useful indicators, what needs to change right now. And when's the best indicator? Yes, from yesterday or from today, what is happening right now. That's the best time to look at your internal psychology. When something is off, when something doesn't make sense right now. And then we have dhihi. This is capacity to understand. And again, this is another modification of the mind. You can understand anything. You can understand simple things, 2 plus 2. Now that same intellect that understands 2 plus 2, it is given such a capacity that it can also figure out the nature of black holes, supernovas, time and space, right? The general theory of relativity. That same intellect can be used for the simplest things to the most complex things. Either way, what the verse is showing is that all of these modifications that we just spoke of, they are there for pragmatic reasons. They're useful. They're neither good or bad. They're just there. They're functions of the mind. All of them are occurring in the presence of drik, consciousness. If you're not there, then can you tell about the changes of your mind? Could you tell about the changes of your mind if you are not there to witness those changes? So when I say the word you, it is that which witnesses the changes of the changing of the mind. Okay? Only the unchanging, in the presence of the unchanging, can changes be known. This is just simple logic. If I sit in a train, how do you know that the train is moving? How do you know that the train is moving? Yeah. In reference to the non-moving, I can tell there is a moving. Okay? This is simple logic. You can only tell there's a change of those 60,000s if there's something that is different from the 60,000s. And that something, it wants to say, is the final reality called consciousness. The final reality consciousness or awareness. We use the same words in Vedanta. There's nothing mystical about it. It's not supposed to be mystical. It's got nothing to do with feeling good. It's just understanding. What feels good? The body and the mind. In the presence of whom is there knowledge of feeling good? Drig. You understand? Does it have anything to do with going to your heart or going to your head? In the presence of whom is there knowledge that I'm going in my heart or staying in my head? In the presence of consciousness. It's got nothing to do with feeling bliss. In the presence of whom is there bliss? In the presence of I, the one that was there before the bliss came, the one that's there while the bliss lasts, and the one that continues after the bliss goes. What does feeling anything have to do with this when it's a condition of the mind or the body? Anything that is recognized to come in time is Drsya. Anything that obtains in the 3 periods of time was there yesterday, is here right now, and will be there tomorrow, is the final Drig. What was different yesterday? The mind and the visuals, right? What you heard and what you saw. What was the same yesterday as is the same right now? Exactly the same. Drig. And what will be exactly the same tomorrow that is exactly the same now? Drig. The Seer. The one in whose presence all of these changes of the world, the conditions of the mind, the conditions of the ears, right? All of this is taking place in this one consciousness. Yeah, and it's much harder to discern. Okay, this is a good point. Maybe I heard something different, but you made a good point. If one is loaded with problems, then where is most of their attention going to go, right? On the mind. Therefore, this is why we say before Vedanta, there has to be a certain maturity of the person, right? One's life has to have or enjoy a relative sense of ease, a relative sense of having resolved some things in the world. Otherwise, you know how hard it is to inquire into the nature, right, into anything, if the mind is constantly kind of ruminating on something that is bothering it. It's very, very hard. Again, see, you have to have some ease, right? You have to have some balance in your life, right? If I'm just sort of kind of looking at turning this into one intellectual pursuit, right? I want to know every Sanskrit word and analyze, right? And look at turn this into an intellectual pursuit. It can be very, very hard, if impossible, to understand this. So this is why in Vedanta, again, it requires some faith, some sincerity, right? Some emotional maturity to kind of release this need of, being in the mind constantly and trying to, I gotta get this, it's a concept. Just letting this go for a moment and just letting the teaching take place. If it doesn't take place, it's gonna take place next time. Otherwise, there's no kind of real thing that I can say right now. If someone's kind of in their head, suppose someone's in their head a lot, and they turn this into a technical pursuit, right? What do you do about that? Suppose this is the case. Someone's turning this into a technical pursuit. What can a teacher possibly say to them to get them out of that place, if anything at all? It's just going to be more words. They've already been hearing words, tons of them, before, yesterday and so on. So this means the person has to just sort of maybe, relax a little bit and do a little bit more meditation. We also advise meditation, which we will have, by the way, meditation, until this technicality, this in the head, starts to release itself. Yeah.
It's a kind of addiction to your problem for a lot of people. Addiction.
Do you mean like an escape from problems? Like an escape from worldly problems. This can become an escape from worldly problems. Yeah. And this happens all the time. All the time. Like I'm parking myself. Oh, I'm beyond the world, right? I'm beyond all of this, so I've got no problems. This is also possible. Yeah.
Or I'm not the Drsya, I'm the Drig, dismiss.
Yeah, I'm not the Drsya, right? I'm not this problem. I am the awareness of this problem. Look, I never speak like this. I don't do this nonsense. I'm consciousness, I'm awareness, I'm Brahman. It's dead words to me. What is it? Suppose you say I'm awareness. How has that helped you right now?
Right, it's just words.
Yeah, it's just words. That's why we have a methodology. It's very different than how we imagined it to be, and we will see this slowly.
Sorry, Andre. It's a state of mind, and it's constantly you have to be aware what state you are at to be the Drig. Because through life, you need to have lots of experience to solve. Otherwise, it will become very, if you just sat and did meditation, I don't think you're going to get any far.
You're not going to get far because in meditation, the problem remains unresolved. You're given a mind to be used.
So it's an escapism.
Yeah. And, this is true. And you're just it feels great. I get it. It feels wonderful. There's no problems. And the yoga world, I will cover this later. You see, the idea in yoga is, they're looking for non-duality. They're looking to resolve. And what's the fastest way to develop an artificial sense of duality? You establish a thoughtless state. So they think, right, in your sects of yoga, believes that a thought takes you away from the Drig. A thought takes you away from the Drig. What are we saying here?
Or should lead you to the Drig.
In the presence of the Drig, the thought is taking place. What does thought have anything to do with taking you away from the Drig? You see this? Because I am, there's a thought. Because I am, there's absence of thought. Can I objectify that I am? No, because if my mind were to do it, there would be another Drsya. Therefore, the Drig can never be objectified, just like you can never see the camera on a photograph. But you infer there must be a camera. There is not even inference, it's just obvious. A camera is there, without which there can be no photograph. Your physical eye, can it see itself? Because the eye cannot see itself, it sees everything else other than itself. It doesn't have to see itself. Because forms are there, implies the presence of that which is the seer of the forms. Because the mind is there, implies the presence of that which is the seer of the mind. Does the eye have any attributes? Like blue, blue vision, green vision? Because the eye doesn't have any attributes, it sees all attributes.
Green is not green. That's in the mind.
Yeah, green is a concept. It's a concept, and it requires the mind, of course. And that's another 60,000 of many. So because...
What is there? I mean, there's no green, there's no seeing, there's no...
this is... we don't talk like this in Advaita Vedanta. There is acknowledgement of the reality, okay? There is. That's a fact. But I have to understand what's the nature of that which is. Okay? So this we will talk about the relationship between Satya and Nitya. I've not covered this yet. Okay? So therefore, we're not denying, never does a person, a jnani, say, there's no world, there's no person, there's no thought. This is called escapism. This is not living, properly. This is just like there is. I just have to understand what is the nature of that which is. rather than discarding it. And this we will cover a little bit later. Suppose your Drig is in the mind. Is the mind ever perfect? No. The mind is never perfect. Are you ever happy with your mind? Yeah. I can always remember more. I can always remember another quote. I can always calculate better. I can always be better in mathematics. I can always learn a new language. I can always talk better. I can always communicate the concepts differently. I can always be funnier. It's just no ending to it. So if my Drig is placed in the mind, I tell you it's a life without any freedom whatsoever, because it's a constant improvement of the mind. So there's no freedom in manipulating the mind. Where's the freedom? Knowing that I'm free of the mind. Knowing that the Drig is free of the mind. That's the only freedom there is. And what kind of knowing is it? Is it like, oh, let me go into my heart. Let me just take a moment to go into my heart. Okay, I got it. Or is it instant? It's instant. Because whatever thought there is, that's exactly where Drig is. That's why the thought is there, because I am there. It's an understanding. That which is there, in the presence of whom the thoughts are taking place, is free of the thoughts. If it were not to be free of the thoughts, then you would be loaded with all of the past thoughts. But do you experience yourself loaded from the previous thought? You are always fresh, available to the next moment. Which means what? That the prior moment has not affected you, the seer, in any way whatsoever. Okay, let's just revise verse 1 to 4 and then we'll move forward. Suppose your consciousness was smart, right? Suppose your consciousness had an attribute of smartness. Your consciousness was smart, right? Your Drig was smart. In the presence of a smart Drig, could you ever recognize a dull Drig? Why not? It will be the same for everyone, because you'll be contaminating everyone with your own consciousness, which is smart. That means if you had any kind of consciousness that had an attribute, then that attribute would be with you all the time. In sleep, in dream, in the waking, and not only that, but you will not be able to perceive that which opposes your smart consciousness. You cannot perceive someone who's silly. You go, oh, what a smart person. You know, they are doing something that's ludicrous and they're very smart. It's kind of like with a light. Suppose I'm shining a white light. And I'm shining the light at RGB, red, green, and blue. And I can perfectly make out red, green, and blue. Why? Because the light that is being shone is not red, is not green, and is not blue. Were the light red, then by the time you shine a red light onto green, what would it be? A green? No, what color would it be? Red? No, it would be purple. What's red plus green? Yellow, right? Yellow. Purple and green, whatever, right? Some funny color, right? So in other words, because the light is attributeless, it doesn't have any attributes of its own, it perfectly illumines the attributes which are in the presence of it. Because your consciousness is attributeless, in the presence of it, you're able to perfectly identify that I am happy right now. I am sad right now. Do you ever experience yourself sort of half happy, mixed, like, what am I right now? Am I happy? Am I sad? Do you experience yourself like that? Or you're perfectly clear, right, what the emotion is? Perfectly clear. So Drig, that which is the final seer, has no attributes of its own. Were it to do so, then I would ask you, okay, what attribute is your Drig? What attribute is your consciousness? Please tell me. What attribute is your consciousness? Oh, it's blue. Oh, really? But the blue belongs to what? The mind. And you picked up the word blue from the English language when you were 5 or 6, or even before. Were you not to learn the English language, you could not even say the word blue. You picked that up from the world. Okay, look at this. Suppose I say to you, what color is this? Blue. Now you wait, and then I go green. Wait, and then red. So this, what you just saw in Sanskrit, is what we call Indriya Pratyaksha. That means to see something, I need the senses. And you needed to wait for me to show you. Okay, there was a delay. You were like, come on, Andre, one more color, please. Okay, here. And then your eyes had to be open in order to see and confirm the color. Of course, it was done by your mind also, by the help of your mind. Now, suppose I say, it's called Indriya Pratyaksha. That means perception through your sense organs, through the eyes. Now, suppose I say to you, hey, right now, I want you to remember the position of your fridge at your house. Where is your fridge in your kitchen? Okay, what is inside the first shelf of the fridge?
Eggs.
What is usually on the first shelf, right?
Eggs.
Beer.
Okay. Oh, beer, okay. Okay. Now look at this. Do you exist?
Yes.
No? Okay, then I don't see you anymore. Right? Do you exist?
Yes.
Okay. Now look at the comparison. Just feel this comparison. First one, Indriya Pratyaksha. You had to wait. It was time bound. Second one, Sakshi Pratyaksha, the mind was required. It's called Sakshi Pratyaksha. It was effort, like hold on. Let me just take a moment. Yep. Fridge, yep, it's over there. First shelf, yep, got it. Was that effort? It was somewhat effort. I could ask the more complicated question. It's going to be effort. But when I say, do you exist?
No.
Is there effort? Do you like, oh, hold on, let me just, yep. Do you have to take time to confirm that you exist? Hold on, let me first see my leg. Yep. Yes, I exist. Do you have to like infer? Do you have to like think? Hold on, let me just, before I answer that, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking right now. There's voice. I'm, thinking. Yes, I exist. Is this how it is when I ask you the question, do you exist? No, it's instant. First one, Indriya Pratyaksha, effort. Second one, mind, effort. That which is the nearest of the nearest, upa, requires no effort whatsoever. Why? Because it's the nearest of the nearest. And because it's so near, we take it for granted. It's like this in a relationship. Because my spouse is so dear and near to me, I forget about their needs. Because my business is so dear and near to me, I forget about that my customers need, to be attended to. Because it's so near, we take it for granted. And yet it is that which is always available, even more than the color, even more than your memory, even more than thinking, even more than 1 + 1. What's easier, 1 + 1 or do you exist?
I exist.
You see this? Even the one concept I had to learn, plus I had to learn. So the easiest thing is that which is the truth. The truth is that which is the easiest to understand, which requires no effort whatsoever. Upa, the nearest of the nearest, I. Don't even have to say I. It's already a burden to say I. You don't have to say I to know that you are, do you? That's why we call it the unverbalized Sakshi. You don't have to verbalize I am. You don't have to verbalize I exist. You know that you exist because it's so self-evident, self-revealing, self-effulgent, self-illuminating. But this, you have to wait to illumine. You have to wait to illumine. And your mind, hold on. Yep, the fridge is in the corner. You see how you have to wait? There's an effort to illumine. But what is effortlessly illumined by itself? What effortlessly is revealed by itself? I exist. Why is it effortless? Because it is the reality. It's the reality of everything. And we will see soon from this self-revealing I, the entire universe comes. How? We will see this soon. Even if you now say, yeah, but. Suppose you say this, yeah, but. Is that a Drsya or a Drik? It's a Drsya. It's a seen object. Yeah, but hold on. I've got like an objection. I heard this somewhere. Look, the whole thing from beginning to the end is Drsya. So this is where we get caught up. Constantly get caught up. We always turn this Drsya into a Drig. Whereas in the presence of the Drig, whatever comes or goes, it is in the presence of that which is always true, always available, ever existent, the self-revealing I am. That which is the nearest of the nearest. Is your partner nearer to you, or are you nearer than your partner? You're nearer than your partner. Even when two people are really together, intimate, even then, who's nearer? Right? You're nearer. You're nearer. You will never find anything more nearer than yourself. And this nearest of the nearest is you, the final reality. There's nothing after. There's nothing more special. There's no higher nearer. Like more expanded, more kind of conscious, more evolved nearer. More, more intelligent consciousness. It's a big problem nowadays. Let me experience levels of consciousness. My consciousness is just a small thing. The wise masters, they have, incredible consciousness. I'm just a small consciousness. And what the verse is saying is, in the presence of the big or the small or the wise or the Tao of anything, in the presence of the Drig, this condition is known, is revealed to me, I. In the presence of the final Drig, there is a person called Mina who is asking this question about the final Drig and the Drsya.
So then the person Mina and final Drig are same or different?
No, because the concept, right? It's a concept in the mind. So when you say Mina, it's a concept. It wasn't there yet, like 5 minutes ago, and it is here now. That question was not here 5 minutes ago, but who was here 5 minutes ago? The seer, right, who observed the Mina observing Andre 5 minutes ago. And that same seer is now observing Mina observing Andre right now. And that same Drig will be there observing Mina, right, observing Andre 5 minutes from now. So the Drig, the final Drig, is that which I cannot turn into a form. It's formless. In the presence of it, all forms, right, all conversations, all thoughts, all questions, all doubts are revealed to that one. What's more near to you than, right, the awareness in whose presence this conversation between Mina and Andre is taking place, right? What's more near than that awareness, which is right here, right now? Otherwise, without which this conversation could not take place. Without you being aware, could this conversation take place between us? Yeah, that's the final Drig. And it doesn't need to be, so when you say, I exist, right? You don't have to say that, but you still know that you exist, right? You still know that you are, that you're conscious, right? So we just bring it out in a form of a conversation. So it's not the final Drig that's saying that. It's Mina who is saying it. In the presence of the final Drig, there is knowledge of Mina saying that. Okay, this will become...
So does this mean when I say I am, it is the mind who's contemplating?
Yeah.
While the seer is looking at the mind?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Okay, speak to him, he's going to... That was very well communicated. Very simple. Okay, now the question is, what is this Drig, this consciousness? We haven't defined it, right? We haven't really talked about what consciousness is. We kind of talked about it, but what does the verse say about what is this final Drig? What is it? Let's see. So verse 5. Na udeti, na astam, eti esha, na vridhim, yati na kshayam. Swayam vibhati atha anyani bhasayet, sadhanam vina. Okay, so here we're talking about various descriptions of consciousness. So we have na udeti, so consciousness, right, the final Drig. So we can also put here consciousness or awareness. These are synonymous words in Vedanta. it's never born, it's unborn. So this is a huge thing, if you say. So consciousness, that which witnesses all of your thoughts, if it was never born, that means nobody owns it. That means you can't say that your consciousness, because you as a person were born, is different from the consciousness of me, right? Because you're obviously referring to Andre who grew up, and you're referring to yourself, the person who grew up. So just the fact that it's unborn means that it is universal. It's one and the same, and it never gets contaminated by anyone's stuff. Because if it is unborn, it by definition means that whatever body is born where? In consciousness. You understand? So when the body grows, right, when this, when conception happens, the little thing, baby, whatever you want to call it, a little thing, a complex mechanism, it grows in unborn consciousness, and consciousness starts to light up its mind. And so it says, me, over here, I am. Different from you over there. Me, the conscious being, am here, and different from the conscious being over there, which you are. You see this mistake? When the body grows in consciousness, when the mind grows in consciousness, what's illumining that mind which just grew in consciousness? Consciousness, right? It lights it up. And therefore the natural assumption is, me, I am a conscious being. And therefore we carry this orientation for the rest of our life. It's just so normal because it's just the most natural experience. In fact, it's going to say that it's natural. They're going to use a word for this. Okay? It also means that, again, it's a big point. So this means never at any point can you ever say that your consciousness is different from the consciousness of a rishi or a wise person or an enlightened person 5,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 100 years ago, 15 years ago, or 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, 100,000 years from now, 1 billion trillion years from now. It's always going to be the same consciousness. And what's going to be different? The Drsya, which grows in consciousness. The Drsya, the mind, the body, which grows in consciousness.
Does consciousness have a memory?
So, what memory?
Does consciousness have a memory?
In-
Has a memory?
So we will see this soon.
Complicated for you to understand.
Okay, so memory belongs to the mind.
Yeah.
Okay, it's one of the functions of the mind, and we will go into a rigorous analysis of what the mind is. It's just one of the functions of the mind.
Yeah.
It's very interesting on YouTube. You can look up the 7-second memory man, and his memory. He had a condition, an illness, and it penetrated the brain, and it destroyed his hippocampus, and it's required for memory, and therefore he cannot. If I kind of turn around, oh, welcome, let's start the class, and then again, it's the same story. Imagine living like this, and he's saying how frustrating it is to live where there's no sense of memory. It's just so frustrating, right? And he keeps on describing it as, what's it like to not have memory? He has no, they call it 7 seconds. It's not even 7 seconds. And it says it's like being unconscious. I can't even imagine that. It's like being unconscious. There's no sense of, a moment ago. It's just totally now. And you can't function like this. But in the presence of the Drig, this frustration is another modification of the mind. Okay? Memory is another modification of the mind. Okay?
Andre, so the Drig it's everywhere. Plants, animal kingdom, everything.
Everything is Drig, as we will see. Everything's one seer in whose presence billions of scenes are illumined. And you're one of those scenes right now. Nothing special, nothing not special. A dog is another scene. An ant is another scene. Okay? You just happen to have a more sophisticated mind, which is able to say, I'm conscious. A dog can't really say that. But the dog is conscious. That's a fact. It's only the human being who can say, I know that I am. Okay, that's the privilege of being a human being. Otherwise, you give the Vedas to a dog, it's going to eat it up, right? It cannot do anything with it. So therefore, it's only when you become a human, gain a human body, we will talk about karma, what gives you this body and not a dog's body. We'll talk about this, that you can start to inquire and ask the question, is memory different from drik, right? Whereas a cow can't even, accept moo for a moment, right? So this is a difference. So it is unborn, and because it's unborn, what does this mean? And you just said everything is drik, right? Everything is drik. And if it's not born, can it ever end? No. So if everything is drik, if your nature is drik right now, as we will see more and more of this, can you ever end, considering you were never born? There was no time when you began. There was no time when consciousness was not, and suddenly consciousness came out of nothing, and that's not how it is. It always was. Okay? It's called beginningless, since beginningless time. And if it was never born, that which is never born can't ever end. Therefore, you can never end. Sorry to say. Or not sorry to say, right? And that's wonderful. I can't ever end. My God, I'm eternal.
And mokshas are still existing.
Yeah. Yes. So there was never a time when you were knowledgeable about who you were, and then suddenly you kind of fell into ignorance. There was ignorance since beginningless time, okay? But it has a point of ending, and that's what we call moksha, liberation, okay? So this is why we're doing this. We're not doing this to, get entertainment here. We're doing this to work out your true nature, that which is unborn, and therefore, when this Drsya dies, I haven't died. In the presence of I, there is knowledge that Andre body is dying. You understand? In the presence of I, there is awareness that this speaker over here sitting and this listener over here sitting is, coming to its final conclusion. Mrityuhu. Okay? That's the whole point. Unborn, it cannot die. So what are we doing here? We're changing our shift of I. What is my definition of myself? Is it this mortal human being who's got, who's always limited? The mind is never perfect. The body is never perfect. It will never be perfect. The thinker is never perfect. No matter how good of a thought you have, someone's going to outdo you. No matter how good of an objection you have, ChatGPT is going to outdo you, right? So all of these things are always a product of the Drsya, the mind. So we're not trying to let's manipulate the mind, let's make the mind bigger. Let the mind be. The mind that you have is the mind that you will die with, most likely. There's nothing right or wrong about the mind. It's just an instrument to do this much, to understand, to come to class, to work out its reality, and let go of this, relatively useful individual who was always here since beginningless time, in different bodies, in different minds, and is here one more life getting a chance. And in one life, it says, wow, I found a teaching, I found a teacher, it makes sense. And how do you know it makes sense? There's something in you that you cannot quite contradict. And how else do we know that the Vedanta is something that cannot be contradicted? Because Adi Shankara does something called a Purva Paksha. Another name is Nanu. So he throws objections at his own statements at Advaita Vedanta, and he tries to find loopholes. So look at this scientific method. So rather than saying, this is how it is, this is how the world is. No. Don't ask me. This is how it is. Rather than doing this, you create objections to try to destroy the very logic of the Vedas. And you find out you can't do it. And then we've had these, kind of conversations between the Advaitins and Purva Mimamsikas. And so they will try to kind of, throw you off. Like, what is this Advaita stuff? What is this consciousness stuff? It's another object. It's flickering of consciousness. We have this also in some traditions. It's just a flicker of your mind. I mean, I don't know where this spark is. You know, it's what kind of a spark are we talking about now? Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's the context. There is a spark of creation, if you want to say, but in the presence of the reality, which is consciousness, the spark arises. Okay, you can't have a spark arise out of nothing, right? There has to be something there, a substratum, out of which the spark arises. So it can't be spark of consciousness because consciousness is the reality, right? So you can't have something come out of nothing, right? So the reality is consciousness, and whatever comes out of it is called the spark of creation. Yeah. So the spark of consciousness, it's not right to say spark of consciousness. Spark of creation, we can say. If it was unborn, then is there ever, and this unborn consciousness is the final reality, will there ever be a time when you start being aware tomorrow? Will there ever be a time when you suddenly start being aware? Why not? Because it's here right now. It was not born. That which is unborn is always true. So this means there is never a time when I'm going to, suddenly have this reality come. I'll capture this reality. Because to want to capture reality implies it's not here right now. But consciousness is that which is ever true in 3 periods of time, even right now. So I will never start being aware. I will never kind of have this, super experience of, I'm now conscious, blissful. I'm blissfully conscious. Think about this. This means there's no point trying to kind of romanticize of what moksha means, what liberation means. It's just understanding this ordinary presence, this ever-available awareness that's always true, in whose presence it lights up all of your thoughts and your doubts and your emotions. That awareness is the final reality. There's nothing else. There's no question of, okay, hold on, maybe tomorrow is going to happen. Maybe, when 5 years it's going to happen. It's right here, right now. How do you know? Because there are changes of the mind, and that which is unchanging has to be different from the mind. And if there is awareness of the mind, that which changes, that implies that you already are enjoying that which is unchanging. Understand? You're already enjoying that which doesn't change. That's how you're able to report the changes. Because there is already something present that doesn't change. And what the text is saying, that which is present, is the final drik. There's nothing after. There's no God's drik is bigger than this drik. God's drik, as we will see, is exactly the same drik as is yours right now. Exactly the same. Na astam eti esha. So when the body moves, when your mind moves, when your mind thinks, that's called movement. In the presence of that movement, right, there is that which doesn't move, right? So, right, now due to this intimate relationship between consciousness and the moving mind and the moving body, because it's so intimate, we confuse and we say, I, consciousness, am the moving one. I, consciousness, am moving right now. Look at me. I, consciousness, right here am, and I, consciousness, over here am. But consciousness is everywhere. Someone said consciousness is all pervasive. So because of the intimate relationship between consciousness and this body, this fella right now speaking, it seems like consciousness is moving right now. But I am already over here. Understand? So it's only now, oh, look, I'm conscious. I am conscious. But I'm conscious everywhere already. Due to the intimate relationship, it gives you an impression that consciousness is moving. The consciousness is not moving. What's moving? The body is moving. The instrument's moving. The mind is moving. Okay? So we will analyze this more tomorrow. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam eva avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.